Thank you for joining us for this edition of Devotions with Brother Aaron. I sure hope you're getting a blessing out of these devotions we're doing. And if you are, I would ask you to do me a favor and simply hit the like button, make a comment, a very positive comment, of course, and if you feel so inclined to do so, forward them to somebody that you think might be blessed as well. All right, let's look and see what the Lord has in store for us today. I've entitled this devotion, Getting the Corruption Out. My mama was a sage. I mean, she really was. She had a way of boiling her wisdom down to simple little sayings that, even as a child, I could understand. However, I later discovered that some of her sagely sayings were not as grounded in scientific fact as she asserted. She was merely manipulating my behavior, saying things like, "Don't cross your eyes, young man, they'll get stuck that way. Don't you scratch that, you'll make it worse. Or don't touch that frog, you'll get warts." However, some of her sayings were so chock full of wisdom that they have stuck with me for a lifetime. Recently, the memory of one of her sayings came back to life. I was born and raised in a vastly different time than today. I was raised in a time that if you were made to stay inside the house, you were being punished for something. Country living meant you had all the great outdoors at your disposal to flesh out any game or activity you could imagine. We learned to hunt and fish. We learned how to build hot rods out of a piece of wood, a couple of axles, a few nails, and a rope for steering. We played games like freeze tag, hide and seek, follow the leader, hand me over, football, and baseball, I might add, with a ball that somebody's mama had made out of old socks. Being raised poor meant that as a young boy, you spent the summer roaming the woods barefoot, shirtless, and in a pair of cutoff britches. As a result of this, it wasn't uncommon to get a briar, splinter, or something stuck somewhere on your body and for it to become infected. I can still hear my mama's voice as she would call to me, "Come here to me, young man. I need to look at that spot on you." It didn't take me long to learn that she had eyes in her fingers. Her looking meant she was about to mash the living daylights out of a place infected by a splinter, briar, or something else. I protested loudly, squirmed, and declared, "Mama, that hurts. Why are you doing that?" And she would reply, "Because it's infected, and I've got to get the corruption out before it can heal." See, she called infection corruption. Then, after looking at it and torturing me for what seemed like a day, she would then put some Merthiolate or Mercurochrome on it. And oh boy, that was certainly special. As you and I journey through this thing called life, we unfortunately get stuck by the thorns and splinters of undesirable circumstances, situations, and even people. And in our zeal for living, we often fail to stop and administer the proper treatment. Left untreated, these thorns and splinters become infected sores filled with corruption over time. As with physical corruption, spiritual corruption prevents healing and leads to unforgiveness, bitterness, and a miserable life. And as my mama said, it's not until we get the corruption out that healing can occur. I wonder what thorn or splinter has filled you with corruption. Perhaps it's a failed marriage and a bitter ex-spouse. Maybe it's a wayward child. Maybe it was the betrayal of a trust or a failed friendship. Maybe it was mental, physical, or sexual abuse. Maybe it was a business deal or business partnership gone bad. Maybe it was moral failure by someone you held in the highest regard. Maybe someone stole something very precious from you. Maybe it was, you fill in the blank. It could have been anything or anybody, but the results are the same: unforgiveness, and corruption. Forgiveness is a choice. It's not predicated upon the offender asking for forgiveness. And no, it most certainly does not excuse what they did, nor does it give them permission to do it again. It simply means realizing that the corruption we harbor is killing us. It means choosing to get it out so healing can occur. Simply means that the Jesus in us is bigger than the circumstances of our lives or what somebody did. I can almost hear the Lord saying to somebody, "Come here, let me look at that. I need to get the corruption out so you can heal." Lord, as painful as they are, I am grateful for the times when you call me aside and remove the corruption from me so I can find healing. Thank you for loving me enough to do so. And as untold numbers of people may be listening to this devotion, regardless of what the corruption is that is poisoning their lives, would you call to them ever so sweetly as you do with me, and would you tell them, "Come here, let me look at that. I need to get the corruption out so you can heal." And Lord, I ask this in your name. Amen.